Greetings. We are back in the studio space here. I'm Jamel Curry.
I'm Chris Warden, and we're in hour 3 of Desert Solstice.
Yeah, we just hit 3 hours. So yeah, it's well, actually it's 3:15 right now. So about 11:15 in the morning here. We got started at 8 a.m. and it's still quite cool. I'm still wearing a jacket. It's a little chilly inside the booth here, but
yeah, we brought the shades down. This booth faces east. For those of you that aren't familiar with this location. So in the morning, the sun was beating down right in our faces, and so we brought the shade down, and we haven't brought it back up.
We might have to do that here in a second.
Absolutely.
Sorry for those of you tuning in. We did have a couple of glitches with our feed, but we're trying to just keep it live as much as we can. So if you currently don't, if this feed somehow dies, just go ahead and refresh the page or look up at the top. We've probably gone live again. We've been able to get it back up pretty much immediately, but it doesn't sync up with the old ones, so just stay tuned for that.
And you can find us obviously on several platforms, on YouTube, on multiple Facebook feeds, and on Twitter. So if you can't find us on one particular feed for a brief moment in time, odds are we're still working on another platform as well.
So a little update, our race leader right now is Thomas Reese. He has 27.6 miles, so he's into that ultra distance now. He's past the marathon. And he is, on his way towards the 50K, just cruising right along. Yeah,
the large part of the field is actually approaching what you would consider to be, well, I guess consider, but they're approaching the marathon distance. And this is 3¼ hours in. As a frame of reference, you've got people that are running at what are Boston Marathon qualifier times and intending to do it for several multiples over the course of the next nearly 21 hours. It's pretty fascinating to watch, and everybody on the track still seems to be moving very well. I haven't seen any signs of anybody looking particularly rough. As you can see on the stream, you've got obviously some moving faster than others, but everybody is moving and making progress. I haven't seen anybody make any significant time away from the course.
I think one of the interesting things as we watch all of these runners come around the curve there is just the variety of strides and running styles, and something kind of works differently for everyone, and that's kind of the beauty of running. There isn't necessarily one single stride that works for all people out there.
Definitely. There are some runners that run in an extremely upright, at least I would consider to be an upright form, as we mentioned.
Like a Patrick Reagan seems to be super efficient, really tiny steps, very upright, and kind of like very efficient. I don't see him on screen right now, but actually,
to bring it up, they can't see it on the stream, but I don't know if you caught it. Courtney DeWalter over on the other side of the track, straight across, she actually started doing some high knee lifts for a very brief moment there. I assume that's just to kind of break up the monotony of the stride that she's doing. But
yeah, I mean, this one, there is no normal break as in a trail or mountain race, so I think sometimes they are looking for something to break it up a little bit. Some as well will do some walking breaks mixed in, but yeah, it's a little early for that probably.
Have you ever seen anybody maybe switch to a skip or a gallop or anything like that?
I haven't seen that. I did see, I think Show Gray, one of the competitors, was stretching a little bit already, and probably a little early for that, but...
Well, for most of these runners, this is still a very modest amount of miles covered so far, and they're not exerting themselves at anything close to 100%. That's one of the things that's also fascinating for those of us that are, rank and file, back of the pack runners. These runners are out here performing at a 7:30 pace for 24 to 27 miles in most cases. And they're going to be maintaining that pace for 100 miles and beyond, and it's really a fascinating thing to watch. And you've started to see, as the time goes on, that the standings have separated out a little bit. You've got a few, as you mentioned, Thomas Rice was at the top.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is Camille is really hanging in there towards the front of kind of the 24-hour field. So the first two runners, Thomas and Oswaldo, are not going for the full 24 as far as they've communicated to us. So in that third position right now, Zach Bitter with 25.6, but Camille is just behind. She's at 25.1, and she's separating herself a bit more from Courtney as time goes on. So I know that there are a lot of eyeballs on those two out at the race this year, and we'll have to really see if Big's backyard is going to affect Courtney. I know I was talking to her husband Kevin a little bit on the track earlier. He was saying how she was initially a little iffy with whether or not she would start. I don't think that was recent. It was probably right after Big's. She did something like 270 miles there just like 6 weeks ago. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out, because we just don't know at this point.
Well, that's one of the interesting things when you compare the two big names on the women's field. When you compare Courtney and
we got a butt right in our feed right
I
here.
believe that that's the Stephen Crawford.
So we'll switch you to another screen here.
But obviously, Courtney coming from the Big's backyard, doing 270 miles. And having a very robust 2018 schedule. Western states, of course. But Camille has had far less race time this year.
Yeah, exactly. She's, I think, coming in a little bit more rested, but her goals are big.
Huge.
And we'll just have to see how that plays out. I was talking to my brother this morning. My brother Nick Curry is also running. He's got some extensive 24-hour, not extensive, but he has 24-hour experience, and he's helped direct this race for a number of years. So when he heard that Camille's goal was, basically 10% of the men's world record, which would put her over 170 miles, he was pretty quick to be like, yeah, it may not be a good idea. So, but a Giannis type effort, that's basically what she was talking about, where she does have the 100-mile world record for women by a large margin, and that's something that Giannis has as well. So she's kind of, wondering, am I the female version of Giannis, essentially? And we'll see how that plays out today.
Well, it's interesting to me because as somebody who has done these distances but on a much slower pace, there are times where I found myself on a course for 18, 21 hours or more. With somebody like a Camille or a Pat Regan, I don't know if they've ever actually been out there. They haven't done the hard rocks and the 18 to 20 plus hour races as you have. What happens for somebody who's never actually encountered that kind of time on feet? I mean, what are they going to be encountering as time goes on?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily a problem. I mean, all of us at some point have to step up in distance and in time. So Pat Regan, prior to Javelina last year, had run 100K and had to make a big leap, and clearly that wasn't an issue for him. He was able to come through strong, run a course record type time, beat Zach Bitter's previous course record by a half hour, and that's a big margin, and he's out here today as well. Pat, of course, is running basically stride for stride with Camille right now. He's on the same lap. I'm trying to see if he's just ahead or behind her. Where is she on the track currently? I see Pat over there. Camille is just behind, so actually no, she's just ahead of Pat Regan right now. So she's about a half lap ahead of Pat. So they're basically running on the same lap right now. And Zach is, of course, the 100-mile American record holder, and he is about 2 laps ahead of them. So it's a pretty tight race. You can see Zach coming across the screen right there in the black with the orange headband. Right behind him is Maggie Guterl in the teal, with the teal glasses, looking pretty fly. But she's another strong contender. She was also at the Big's backyard along with Courtney, and she was, I think, in the top handful of runners there. So she is not too far behind Courtney, just a couple laps.
When you're talking about the sport in general, one thing that seems impressive to me with a couple of the leaderboard types for the men, such as Patrick and Zach, they're both coming off of huge 100-mile performances within the last 4 to 6 weeks. Is that normal for runners to be jumping from a 100-mile race into a 24-hour race less than 2 months apart? Or, I mean, what kind of base are runners building for themselves now, as opposed to, I was always under the impression that you picked 1 or 2 a year. In most cases, there are obviously exceptions, but by and large, that many miles in that short of a period of time was always something that seemed to be few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. You never quite know. I think a lot of times the long run for many people will, be in that 20 to 25 mile range, but kind of not counting races. So I know personally for me, going into a 100-miler, I like to get a longer effort, say 50 miles. And I guess when you're going for some big mileage in a 24-hour, having a 100-mile under your belt may not be the worst idea. It's just a question mark of how does